What's up guys, welcome back. Today we're taking a look at a food court favorite. One of my first jobs was at Finish Line, which means I spent more than my fair share of time at the mall, and this is something that I ate multiple times per week. Today I'm gonna show you guys my recipe for bourbon chicken. This comes together in less than 30 minutes. It's super simple, easy, and delicious. But before we get into the recipe, please take a quick second to subscribe to the channel. Make sure you hit that bell to enable notifications as well. All right, my friends, meet me in the kitchen. Let's make it happen. First things first, let's take a look at these ingredients. Now, I'm not gonna lie to you guys and say it's not a lot of ingredients, but it's worth it. Today we have some chicken breast. You could also use chicken thighs if you want to, but I'm a breast man, so that's what we're going with. Over here we have our apple cider vinegar, our apple juice, chicken broth, some brown sugar, ketchup, soy sauce, and the star of the show, at least for me, a little bourbon. As for the fresh ingredients, we have some green onion, some freshly minced garlic, some ginger paste, and a little bit of browning that's gonna add that deep, dark, rich color that you're used to seeing with bourbon chicken. All right, let's get this party started with the chicken. Again, we have chicken breast. You could use chicken thighs for this. You could also use pork. You can do a similar recipe with that. You need a nice sharp knife like this one right here. If you need to upgrade your knife in the kitchen, you can grab this via the link in my description box. But we're just gonna thinly slice the chicken breast here, and then we're gonna season it up. This is about 1 pound of chicken breast is enough for probably 6 servings or so. If they're too long, you can cut them in half. It's really up to you. It's a matter of personal preference. Another way to do that is to cut the chicken down the middle and then cut it into chunks. There we go. We got them all about the same width, which is what you want to see. Same level of thickness, that way they get done at the same time. Next up, we're gonna add the chicken to a mixing bowl so we can get in there with some seasoning. We're also gonna coat this in about 2 or 3 tablespoons of cornstarch. First thing that I'm going in with is a little bit of chicken bouillon powder, a teaspoon or 2 of that. And then I'm gonna season it with some all-purpose seasoning as well. Keeping it pretty simple today, guys, because there's a lot of flavor in this sauce, so you don't wanna overdo it, but you wanna make sure your chicken is seasoned. I like to do this about 20 minutes before it's time to cook it. And personally, I like to season the chicken prior to adding the cornstarch. That way the cornstarch is the outer layer and it kind of secures or locks in that seasoning on the actual chicken. So just get in there with your hands, make sure everything is evenly distributed. You can add a little bit more if you need to. My all-purpose seasoning is low sodium, so I can go a little heavier with that. You might want to check the sodium content on your all-purpose seasoning before you go following my lead with that. But that's what you want to see, just nice and evenly coated. And then we're going to add a little bit of cornstarch. So now that we got our chicken seasoned, we're going down with 2 to 3 tablespoons of cornstarch. That's going to add some texture to the chicken, and again, it's going to help thicken up our sauce a little bit later. Just get in there with your hands and make sure that's evenly coated in that cornstarch. You don't have to do it like, like fried chicken, but you want there to be a nice light layer of cornstarch on the outside of your chicken. All right, so the star of the show here, guys, is really the sauce. It's delicious, it's sweet, it's savory. Got a little acid from the apple cider vinegar that we're adding right now. A little sweetness from the apple juice. You get the saltiness from the soy sauce. Little chicken broth to thin things out. And then we have our ketchup. Quick reminder, guys, that all the specific measurements and ingredients are listed for you in the description box below, so make sure you check that out. Just gonna give that a good mix. Then we're going in with about a 1/4 cup of bourbon. Make sure you save some for the taste test. Cheers, my friends. And then I like to add the browning at the very end. This is just gonna add some color. You can find this in most grocery stores in the gravy section or in the international section. Just about a 1/4 teaspoon of that, a little bit goes a long way. And it's mostly there just to adjust the color a little bit. Now, as far as seasoning goes, we're keeping it real simple. Just a little red pepper flakes for some heat and just a dash of all-purpose seasoning. That has some onion powder and some garlic powder in there as well. And then about a teaspoon or so of red pepper flakes. So now we're gonna heat our skillet over medium high. To the skillet, I'm gonna add about a 1/4 cup of avocado oil, just enough to cover the bottom. We're not gonna deep fry this chicken, just wanna kind of pan fry it. Literally just enough to coat the bottom of the skillet. Once that gets nice and hot, we're gonna add our chicken in 2 batches. We don't wanna overcrowd the skillet because it's gonna drop the temperature and we're not gonna get the color we're looking for. So you wanna give it a couple minutes, let that skillet get nice and hot, let that oil get nice and hot, and then we'll add in the chicken. So when you add in the chicken, you wanna make sure it's making good surface area contact with the skillet. That way we get that nice color. Now, if you're using a stainless steel skillet like I am today, you don't wanna rush the process because if you try to move the chicken too soon, it's gonna stick to the bottom of the stainless steel. One way you know when your chicken is ready to flip is that it releases itself from the skillet. So basically what I'm saying is if it's stuck, it's not ready to flip. Again, we're doing this in 2 batches. You don't want to overcrowd the skillet. 1 pound of chicken should be enough for 2 batches in this size skillet. All right, so it's been about 3 minutes at this point. As you can see, the chicken is perfectly brown and it's super easy to remove from the skillet. That's because it's ready to flip. You may have to give it a little bit of play, but it don't take much to flip them over. That's a good sign that they're ready to flip. Perfect color, that's what you want to see right there. That's what that cornstarch helps us out with. Just give it another minute or 2 on the other side and we'll finish cooking it in the sauce here in just a minute. All right, so as you can see, we've cooked all the chicken. We removed the chicken from the skillet, leaving behind all of that delicious flavor, what's called fond at the bottom of the skillet. We're gonna release that when we add our sauce. But first and foremost, we wanna add in this garlic. I killed the heat so we don't burn the garlic. We're gonna use the residual heat from the skillet to start to cook that garlic. We're also gonna add in some diced green onion. Now that the skillet has cooled a bit, I'm gonna turn the heat back on to medium-low and just let that garlic start to infuse its flavor. The house is gonna be smelling amazing at this point. Oh man. So after about 30 seconds or so, we're gonna add in that sauce and bring that up to a boil and allow it to reduce. You wanna give it about 10 to 12 minutes to really start to thicken up at a nice rolling simmer. You wanna scrape the bottom of your skillet to release all of that fond and flavor. Now I'm gonna go ahead and add in about 2 teaspoons of this ginger paste. We're gonna mix that into the sauce as well. Allow everything to kind of come together as it simmers. I can already feel that everything's kind of coming up off the bottom of the skillet and off the sides. And we just want to allow this to reduce and start to thicken up. We're also going to add what's called a slurry to thicken this up at the very end, which is basically just a combination of cornstarch and cold water. We want to give this a minute to reduce, cook off that alcohol from the bourbon, and just let all those flavors come together. So this is how we're looking after about 5 minutes of simmering. You can see the sauce is getting nice and dark, starting to thicken up. All of that alcohol in the bourbon is cooked off, leaving behind that delicious flavor. Give it another 5 minutes or so, and then we'll add in the slurry to give it a little bit more thickness. And then we'll finish cooking our chicken in this sauce and plate this up with some white rice. So now we're just gonna go ahead and add in the slurry, which again is about a tablespoon of cornstarch and 3 tablespoons or so of cold water. That's gonna immediately start to thicken up the sauce. We're gonna increase the heat a little bit to bring it to a boil, and you'll immediately start to notice that it's nice and thick, as you can see here. And that's exactly what you wanna see. As you can see, the sauce is beautifully thick, perfect color. Make sure you taste as you go and adjust the flavor to your preference. If you want it a little sweeter, you could add a little more apple juice or brown sugar. If you want to add a little heat, you can add some red pepper flakes. But this right here is money. Thing we want to do is add the chicken back to the party and just ensure that the chicken is coated nicely and that sauce we worked so hard on. Not really so hard, it was pretty easy. But that's what we're going for, nice and easy. A food court favorite. That's what you want to see right there, guys. Look at that. Much better than the stuff I was eating when I was 19 or 18 years old, when I was the assistant manager at Finish Line. Now it's time to plate this up. We got the delicious bourbon chicken over a mound of white rice. I like basmati, but use whatever rice you got. Some cauliflower rice if you're trying to cut back on the carbs a little bit. We're gonna hit this with some more sauce, because why the hell not? We're here for a good time, not a long time. Oh man. Now my friends, for garnish, we have some white and some black sesame seeds. These are optional just to jazz it up a little bit. Give it a little more color contrast. And then we're going down with some diced chive for a pop of color. And now is when I tell you guys to brace yourself for a trademark money shot. Say it with me, guys, looking good. The only thing left to do is get in there for a taste test. But before we do that, please take a quick second to subscribe to the channel. Make sure you hit that bell to enable notifications as well. And now, my friends, it's time for the moment of truth. I found my chopsticks. Oh man, she's a beauty. Almost too pretty to eat. Almost. Cheers. Ever was at Finish Line, and I used to work. One of my first jobs ever was at Finish Line, which means I had to work at the mall. Today we're taking a look at a food court favorite. Why is the intro so much harder than everything else? All right, ready? A lot of bloopers for this one. For the taste test, cheers, my friends.